I'm so incredibly excited to finally launch my podcast. Thank you so much for joining me for episode number one. So, what's this podcast all about? I'm going to be chatting with the incredible people behind the iconic brands we all know and love. I'm really interested in how they started their business, what hurdles they've faced and overcome, and I'm just so excited to learn about the entrepreneurs and personalities behind these incredible brands. But this isn't just a business podcast, this is also about mindset and personal development and being your best self. And like with everything, as we get more into it, it'll evolve with time. So, in this episode, I'm going to tell you a bit more about myself and how I built Showpo. And I will be dropping also my first episode next with my first guest, and it'll be Matilda Murray and Don Robinson from the incredible activewear brand Stacks that's taking over the world. And then every Tuesday, I'll be dropping a brand new episode. We've got Frank Bod, Bellini, Blogilates, Peter and Jane, Jagger and Stone, BB Tape, Finder, Thank You, Kiki K, and so much more. And my fellow sharks from Shark Tank Australia. And the last Wednesday of every month, I'm going to have a special episode that's all about my new little podcast community. We're going to do some Ask Me Anythings. You'll get the opportunity to write in with questions. And I want to hear more stories from you guys. So grab your phone and join our pod community at the Lazy CEO _ podcast on Insta and the Lazy CEO and Friends on Facebook. Now let's get into it. So, who the hell am I? I'm the founder and CEO of Showpo, a women's online fashion brand that sells to millions of customers around the world. Today, we're a 9-figure business, and it's a business that I started 13 years ago almost, despite being $60,000 in debt. I'm also a co founder of Like Minded Bitches Drinking Wine, a women's online community of over 170,000 members. And a new exciting addition to my title this year is that I will be a shark on the upcoming season of Shark Tank Australia that's airing later this year. I literally just finished filming last week and have had the most incredible experience. Anyway, that's me in a nutshell. And now I'll tell you about how I got here. So let me start by saying that I never wanted to even start a business when I was growing up or to be in fashion. All I thought that I would be doing and what I thought I actually wanted to do was to work for a big multinational corporation. I wanted to wear power suits and work in a big high rise building. And all my parents wanted was for me to have a good job with a secure future. And that essentially meant choosing from a few career options of being a doctor, lawyer, accountant. And I honestly didn't even know that there were other options. It's not like my parents would come home from work talking about how fulfilled their day was. We were just trying to get by. And work was all about financial security, and that was it. I actually smashed it in my final year of high school and got a cadetship at one of the big four accounting firms, KPMG, straight out of high school. So I was working full time and then going to uni part time at night, and I kind of loved it. Well, I love the Friday night drinks in the city part of it, and then feeling important, wearing a power suit, and having a full time salary for the first time ever. I then moved on into corporate finance at EY. I applied because everyone was saying that corporate finance is the sexy department of an accounting firm, but I soon learned that such a thing does not exist. And I really started to hate my work. So, when a friend came to me and asked if I wanted to start a business with her, I was so excited by this that I didn't care what the business was about. She wanted to open pop up stores selling products from emerging designers. It seemed random because either of us had experience in fashion or retail. Even as a casual job, I've only ever worked at Macca's or in bartending, but I didn't care. I was so excited to create something together. So the idea was to find locations that had heaps of foot traffic but weren't being used during retail trading hours so that we could get it for really cheap rent. So where do we go? We went to bars. Now, anyone around my age and from Sydney will remember that the art house used to be pretty cool. And it was in the middle of the city next to the main Westfield shopping centre. And then we just went around to a bunch of market stalls around Sydney and started handing out our business cards and asking designers of fashion, accessories, and homewares to be stocked with us. So we couldn't afford to buy the stock. So we proposed a consignment model. We would take the stock up front, but only pay for it after it was sold. And we ended up getting like 50 suppliers to stock with us like that. Now, it was a lot of manual work because we were only setting up to trade during the day. And setting up meant that we had to hire a van and a driver for the day, move all the stock from my parents' garage into the van, move all the stock from the van into the art house, set up all the racks and tables, and set up all the clothes and accessories and homewares, and then hustle really hard to sell the products. So, like, hi, I'm Jane. We're selling an eclectic collection from emerging designers, blah, blah, blah. And I really hated doing this. And then we had to hand out flyers when it was quiet, pack away all the stock back into the van at the end of the day, and then pack all the racks and tables back into the bar and unload everything from the van back into my parents' garage. It was such a painfully long day. And I was doing it all as a side hustle on weekends and after work whilst working a full time job at Ernst& Young. So 6 months into it, the business was probably doing like a quarter of a mil run rate at this point, but it was only breaking even. My business partner asked me to quit my corporate job so that we could focus on the business. Now, I was really hating my job at this point. I used to look at my career trajectory as growth and job security, but now I was looking at the idea of doing accounting and finance for the rest of my life as a sentence. Did I really want to spend the next 30 to 40 years doing a job that I didn't like and I was mediocre at? So, one day I was sitting at my cubicle, and after spending 3 hours trying to remove a circular reference from a spreadsheet, I thought to myself, what have I been doing all day? I'm literally 3 hours closer to death. Sorry to sound morbid, but all I've been doing is sitting here working on this spreadsheet that I couldn't care less about. What have I achieved? And now I'm going to just go and drown my sorrows in the meatball sub for lunch like every other day. How is this my life? So I quit. I felt great about this. I was so excited to throw everything into the business. Now, everyone told me that I was being an idiot. My friends, my colleagues, what do you know about starting a business? What do you know about retail? What do you know about fashion? I didn't care. I thought the only dumb part was that I didn't wait to get made redundant first, since we were in the middle of a global financial crisis and I could have used that for seed capital. But anyway, the only thing is that I couldn't bring myself to tell my parents about it. They had sacrificed so much for me to move from China to Australia when I was 8. They left their family and friends, their great jobs. They left everything they knew. And I was killing it in their eyes in terms of me going to the school and university that they wanted and getting the dream job that they wanted me to get. There was just no way I was going to tell them I was leaving it all to sell clothes. Let me paint you a picture of my day. I would still have to get up super early. And let me tell you, it's so incredibly painful to get up early when you're not a morning person and you're actually unemployed. I would get dressed into my corporate suit, which felt like it was mocking me. And then I would have breakfast with my parents. And then I would have to get the bus into the city with my mum because she also worked in the city. And then I started going to a cafe to work on the business. I mean, that's kind of everyone's romanticized views of working on your business, right? Strategizing on the laptop in a cafe. But then I couldn't afford to keep reordering drinks throughout the day. So I ended up going to the state library where I had spent most of my day studying for the HSC. Anyway, I focused this time on turning the pop up store into an online store. I built a website and took photos of the almost 1,000 SKUs we had. Now, coincidentally, my business partner went on holidays when I resigned. So when she came back after a month of holidays, I was so excited to show her our new website. I mean, think about the prospects. Now our customers weren't limited to specific locations, operating at specific times, and the growth wouldn't be limited to amount of manual labor we could output or what we could fit in the van or my parents' garage. I was so freaking excited to show her, but she had different news. She said that she was over it and she didn't want to do it anymore and that she was going to close the company down. I said, please just look at the website, think about the opportunities, and let's just give it a chance. And then she looked me straight in the eyes, and I'll never forget this. She said, look, Jane, no one shops online. Now, I'm going to let you sit on that for a second. And spoiler alert, for a little context, this was 2 months before Showpo sold its first product online. I didn't have the confidence back then to continue with the business by myself. I know it sounds a bit ridiculous now, but it's true. So that was it. That was the end of Fat Boy Group. Oh, and did I forget to mention that the business was called Fat Boy Group? Yeah, Fat Boy with a silent E at the end. Yeah, it was probably doomed to fail. Regardless, I was devastated. I had never faced failure to this degree before, and I literally hit rock bottom and didn't know what to do with myself. I had everything that I had always wanted, everything my parents had sacrificed for, everything I was working hard towards. And then I just went and flippantly threw it all away. So here I was in the middle of the global financial crisis. No companies were hiring, so there was no chance I get another job. And I quit in such a so long suckers kind of way. There was no chance they were going to take me back at EY. And it gets worse. Now I'm massively in debt. $60,000 of debt, in fact, from uni fees, from losing money in the business. And then because I resigned early from KPM from my KPMG cadetship, I had to pay back a $17,000 allowance. So I had just gone from having the perfect job, fast tracked in my career, and having my life perfectly laid out for me to now all of a sudden having failed at my business, $60,000 in debt, unemployed, in the middle of the global financial crisis, rock bottom. But then a friend of mine said, let me introduce you to a friend that also wants to start an online store. And I honestly didn't think it'd go anywhere, but I was so desperate, I just went along. When we met up, we instantly hit it off. She already had a business in the fashion industry, but wanted to get into retail, especially the online space. So one night, after meeting only a handful of times, over a few too many glasses of red wine, we came up with a name and concept for Show Pony, which is what we were called back then. Good thing I had already spent a month teaching myself how to build a website, right? So I whipped one up that night and showed it to my new business partner the next morning. She loved it and wanted to power on. She already had a supply contract, which was really lucky. And we found models and photographers who were happy to shoot that weekend in exchange for clothes. And then within a week, we were live and we made our first sale. It was to one of the models' friends who found us on Facebook. But still, it proved that 2 months after it was said to me that people do, in fact, shop online. And so now we're in business, right? All really exciting. Well, except for the fact that I didn't have any money. So, how do we do it? Well, the two main costs for starting an online retail business is inventory and marketing. But because I had learned about this concept of consignment from doing Fatboy Group, we pitched it to our first supplier and it worked. So it meant that every afternoon I have to go to that supplier's office and pick up the stock from all the orders from the last 24 hours to send. And then we only have to pay for it after we've made the sale and we've already taken the money from the customer. So it was very manual and very laborious. But back then, time I had plenty of, money I did not. So it was great. And then for marketing, well, we definitely couldn't afford any of the traditional marketing methods like radio, PR, or print advertising. So I turned to Facebook. Now, this might not seem like a big deal now, but back then it was still so uncommon. This was way before the big retailers and before most businesses took social media seriously. So it gave us such a competitive edge to grow our business organically. And yes, this was so long ago that there used to be Facebook organic reach. That's how it all started. But then it kind of just plateaued for the next year. Well, actually, I think it started to shrink. And then my business partner's business was then taking off. Showpony was just having one hiccup after another. And so she decided to exit the business 15 months later. And we're actually still really great friends now. So all of a sudden, I was in business by myself for the first time. And at first, I was pretty excited. And then I realized that if the business fails now, both business failures would be entirely attributed to me because I would be the common thread. But luckily for me, another spoiler alert, things turn around. In that first month by myself, I did a bunch of things like started running Google ads, optimized Facebook ads, posted more on social media, brought more product, removed the shipping charge, the shipping fee, provided more timely customer service. I can't really attribute it to just one thing in particular because I was just doing everything and anything to try to make it work. But I think the best thing was being able to work by myself because I was able to make faster decisions and to take on more risks. Because if I failed, I only had myself to answer to. So I was doing a lot more testing. And then once something worked, I would then just go and double down on it. That month, we doubled in sales. That last month, together with my business partner, we made $5,000 for the month, which is like 2 orders a day. The next month, we made $9,000, then 40,000, then 75, then $140,000 only 4 months later. 2 years later, we had our first $1 million month. So that's how it all started. Now, I'll tell you just briefly about the biggest things that then drove our growth to becoming the 9 figure business we are today, but we'll have to deep dive into this in future episodes. A big one was putting in systems and processes that so that I could start working on the business instead of in the business. And then, of course, what goes hand in hand with that is hiring the right team to help me grow the business. And then, alongside that, is outsourcing certain functions to agencies like digital marketing and conversely, in-housing other functions like e-com photography. And then we open ourselves up to global markets by selling more internationally. And of course, a big one was product development and investing in more stock. We started by launching our workwear range, then our formal range. We were one of the first brands to be doing these kind of ranges at such affordable prices. And then we launched our bridal range. Like I wore a $300 Showpo dress for my wedding. And of course, something I'm really proud of is when we extended our size offering to 4XL 7 years ago. I've been growing this little baby of mine for the past, well, almost 13 years. For me, and this is a bit of a cliche, but it's all about the journey, not the destination. I've had so much fun, and anyone who knows me or follows me can see that I'm all about stopping to smell the roses. But it's also been tough. I've made so many mistakes and have had so many sleepless nights. More recently, the lockdowns were really tough on the business. Managing toxic people has been the most draining thing ever. I still have really bad imposter syndrome and second guess myself all the time. And I know that when Shark Tank airs, it's going to open myself up to criticism from the whole country. But I live by the principle of what doesn't kill you only makes you stronger. And it all goes to making me the person I am today. Outside of work, I have a 2.5-year-old boy and a 7-month-old baby girl, and a very supportive husband who joined me at Showpo a few years ago. And my guilty pleasure is watching reality TV and drinking red wine. So that's a little bit about me. Hopefully, you stick around and join my potty fam. Every Tuesday, I'll be dropping a podcast with the founders and creators behind some of the most well known brands. And then on the last Wednesday of every month, we're going to have a special episode that's all about my new little podcast community. We're going to do some Ask Me Anythings. You'll get the opportunity to write in business questions. And then on the last Wednesday of every month, we're going to have a special episode that's all about my new little podcast community. We're going to tailor the content to what you want to hear. And on the last Wednesday of every month, we're going to have a special episode that's all about my new podcast community. We're going to tailor it to what you guys want to hear. So I will be opening up the forum. So grab your phone and join our pod community at the Lazy CEO underscore podcast on Insta and the Lazy CEO and friends on Facebook. All linked in the show notes. And so that's all from me for now. I'll see you in the next episode.